What if the exact thought you're having right now, and I mean literally right this second, was actively rearranging the atoms of your future?
Right, like not metaphorically.
Exactly. Not as some psychological trick, like whether you're stressed about a credit card bill or just excited about dinner tonight.
Yeah, what if that casual Tuesday afternoon daydream was an actual, measurable physical force, just pulling concrete events toward you like a magnet?
It's a massive idea, and it completely shatters how we usually understand the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're totally conditioned to believe that the physical world is the primary reality. You know, the flat tire, the promotion, whatever.
And our thoughts are just our reactions to that stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
But the material we're looking at today demands a complete inversion of that logic. It argues that your invisible thoughts are the undisputed engine of reality.
And the physical world is just like the delayed echo of what you were thinking about yesterday, which is wild to think about.
It really is.
So that inversion is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to another deep dive.
And today, we're digging into the foundational texts of a wildly influential concept. Specifically, Rhonda Byrne's massive phenomenon, The Secret.
Yeah, we're looking closely at the book's foreword, the acknowledgments in those crucial early chapters, the ones that try to define the actual mechanics of the law of attraction.
Because our mission here isn't just to give you a surface-level summary of a pop culture touchstone. We want to rigorously examine the internal logic of this philosophy.
Right. How do the biggest proponents of this law describe its mechanics? What analogies do they use?
And what are the absolute, almost terrifying rules they say the universe operates by?
Exactly, because whether you view these concepts as literal quantum physics or just a historical curiosity or even just a psychological tool for reframing your mind.
It offers this incredible lens into human desire. You know, it shows how desperate we are for agency and control over life's chaos.
It really does. So before we get into the mechanics, I want to ask you, the listener, to do something. Just take a mental snapshot of your current state of mind.
Yeah, notice what you're thinking about right now.
Because according to the logic we're stepping into today, that thought hovering in your mind right now, it's actively shaping the rest of your life.
Which is a pretty heavy proposition to start with.
Just a little bit. But to really understand how this global movement ignited, we have to look at the narrative anchor the author provides.
Right, because this didn't start with physicists in a lab somewhere. According to Byrne's foreword, it started in a place of total, crushing personal devastation.
The classic dark night of the soul. The setup she paints is so stark. She describes a period where the fundamental pillars of her life just collapsed.
All at once, basically.
Yeah, she had worked herself into total exhaustion. Her father died suddenly, which brought on this immense wave of grief.
And on top of all that, her relationships were in absolute turmoil.
Yeah.
Work colleagues, loved ones, just everything.
It's that scenario where everything that could go wrong does go wrong.
And psychologically speaking, it's often in those exact moments of structural collapse that a person becomes most receptive to a radical paradigm shift.
Oh, that makes total sense. Like, your normal way of doing things clearly isn't working.
Exactly. When your existing framework fails to protect you from suffering, your mind opens up to alternatives, things you would have instantly dismissed if life was going well.
Right. Her reality was untenable, so she was primed for a revelation. And that revelation actually arrived as a physical object.
Out of all this despair, she says she was handed a glimpse of a great secret.
Yeah, her daughter, Haley, gave her a 100-year-old book. She doesn't name it right away in the foreword, but this single object sparked a massive historical obsession for her.
She essentially started tracing this concept back through time, and it leads to some of the boldest historical claims we have ever seen in print.
I mean, the scope of the retroactive diagnosis she applies to history is staggering. The premise is that this secret has been coveted, hidden, and stolen for centuries.
All for vast sums of money, too. And then she lists the people who supposedly understood and used it.
And this is where my brain just glitches, because the list is wild. We're talking Plato, William Shakespeare, Sir Isaac Newton.
Victor Hugo, Beethoven.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, and Leonardo da Vinci.
It literally reads like a syllabus for Western civilization's greatest hits.
It does. But if we pause and look at this logically, is it really plausible? Like, that vastly different historical figures were all secretly operating on the exact same metaphysical framework.
It's a huge stretch.
Take Abraham Lincoln. If you read his personal letters, they are steeped in a very specific, melancholic Calvinist view. He thought he was just an instrument of a higher divine will.
Which is the exact opposite of claiming personal metaphysical control over reality.
Exactly. Or look at Einstein. Einstein was a strict determinist. He famously said, God doesn't play dice with the universe.
Right. He believed in immutable physical laws, not human thought frequencies.
So how does the source material justify lumping a melancholic president, a Renaissance painter, and a theoretical physicist into one neat little philosophical box?
Well, that is the crucial critical question. The thing is, Byrne doesn't provide historical footnotes showing how Einstein practiced the law of attraction.
Right, we're not getting secret diary entries here.
No, she asserts that the results of their lives, their genius, their historical impact, are the definitive proof that they must have understood this underlying law.
I see. It's like a grand unifying theory of success.
Precisely. The internal logic suggests the law of attraction is a fundamental law of nature, like gravity. So anyone who achieved greatness must have been using it.
Whether they called it the secret, or God, or just hard work.
Right. The text explicitly states that poets put it in their poetry and musicians in their symphonies. By co-opting Einstein and Da Vinci, it's attempting to manufacture ultimate authority.
Because if you co-opt the smartest people who ever lived, you co-opt their credibility.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop at individuals. The text broadens this claim to entire ancient civilizations.
Oh, right, the Babylonians. The author claims a select group of Babylonians knew this secret, and she credits that for making them one of the wealthiest races in history.
She even attributes the Hanging Gardens of Babylon to their use of this specific knowledge.
Applying a 2006 self-help concept to ancient Mesopotamian agricultural engineering is a massive leap.
It certainly is. But again, it serves a narrative purpose. It frames the concept as ancient forgotten wisdom that built empires, rather than an untested theory.
It makes it feel incredibly exclusive, but also suddenly accessible. And for the author, discovering this alleged history was the spark.
Yeah, she writes that she became consumed with sharing this with the modern world, which leads to her real-world case study.
Right, the actual production of the secret film itself. From a logistical standpoint, the way she describes this is fascinating.
She essentially uses the documentary as the ultimate proof of concept. She claims she became a living magnet.
As she searched for living masters who knew the secret, she says people were just drawn to her in this perfect chain.
Yeah, if she clicked the wrong link on the internet, she claims it wasn't an accident. It would miraculously lead her to vital information.
But the timeline is the craziest part. She says the vision became fixed in her mind, and within 2 months, she forced her entire production team to learn the secret.
She genuinely believed doing the project without this metaphysical tool would be impossible.
And then they fly from Australia to the United States. And the text notes a detail that would give any producer a panic attack.
Right. Quote, "We did not have a single teacher secured to film."
They flew across the planet on utter faith. And according to the book, 7 weeks later, they had filmed 55 teachers.
And gathered over 120 hours of footage. She writes, "We literally magnetized everything and everyone to us."
Anyone who has worked in television production knows that booking 55 experts scattered across a massive country in 7 weeks, starting with 0 confirmations.
It's a statistical anomaly. It borders on the impossible.
Right. But the text presents this as the direct, undeniable, mechanical result of using the law of attraction to create a movie about the law of attraction.
And the claims of miracles just scale up from there. The text describes the aftermath, about 8 months after the film's release.
The letters started pouring in, and it details a wide spectrum of reported phenomena, people claiming instantaneous healing from chronic pain or severe disease.
Accounts of people walking after horrific accidents or recovering on their deathbeds.
And it pairs those physical healings with massive financial windfalls, unexpected checks in the mail, finding dream homes, luxury cars.
Even scaling down to a child attracting a specific colored bird feather or getting high grades.
What stands out to me there is how the book flattens the hierarchy of these events, like curing a disease, finding a soulmate, and finding a bird feather.
They're all treated with the exact same level of gravity.
Yeah, why is that?
It's a very astute observation, and it's a core feature of the philosophy. Within this framework, there is no difference in difficulty between manifesting a feather and manifesting $10 million.
Because it's just a mechanical process.
Exactly. The law itself doesn't distinguish between the scale of the desire. It only measures the focus of the mind.
Okay, so if the Babylonians supposedly used it for the Hanging Gardens, and she used it to schedule interviews, what exactly is the mechanism here?
The book doesn't hide the ball on this. Bob Proctor, one of the featured teachers, simply states that the secret is the law of attraction.
And another teacher, Bob Doyle, distills it to its absolute essence, like attracts like.
But it's crucial to understand they aren't using that phrase the way we normally do.
Right. Normally we say like attracts like to explain why extroverts hang out with extroverts, or people with similar hobbies.
Yeah, social or psychological observations. But the book applies this to fundamental physics. Doyle immediately says we're really talking at a level of thought.
So the foundational assertion is that thoughts aren't just abstract ideas. They aren't just electrical impulses trapped in your skull.
No, the text treats thoughts as tangible, physical forces that project outward. It quotes Prentice Mulford from 1891, who said, "Every thought of yours is a real thing of force."
And Charles Haanel in 1912 took it further. He claimed the vibrations of mental forces are the finest and most powerful in existence.
Notice the word vibrations. This is where the source material borrows the vocabulary of physics to legitimize a metaphysical concept.
Right, like John Assaraf, the entrepreneur in the text, he argues that every thought has a specific measurable frequency.
He literally says we can measure a thought.
So if you sit quietly and imagine a luxury car or visualize depositing a huge check, you aren't just daydreaming, you're acting as a biological transmitter.
Emitting a highly specific frequency into space. And because the law is like attracts like, that frequency acts as a literal magnetic pull.
The text is unambiguous about this. It says, you are the most powerful magnet in the universe.
Yeah, that your unfathomable magnetic power is emitted through your thoughts.
If your predominant mental attitude is focused on wealth, it invariably attracts conditions and people that correspond to it.
It pulls the wealth to you.
You know, I was thinking about this idea of emitting a frequency and getting the exact same thing back. And it hit me. This sounds exactly like a modern social media algorithm.
That is an incredibly modern way to frame it. How do you mean?
Well, think about TikTok or YouTube. The algorithm is completely unfeeling. It doesn't care if a video is good for your mental health. It doesn't have a moral compass.
Right, it only measures one metric.
Exactly, engagement. If you linger on a sad, heartbreaking video for 3 extra seconds, the algorithm doesn't say, oh, they're sad, let me show them a comedy to cheer them up.
It says, they are engaging with sadness. Give them 100 more sad videos.
Yes, it feeds you exactly what you focus on in an endless amplifying loop.
That is a phenomenal analogy. It captures the absolute neutrality of the mechanism perfectly.
Yeah.
John Assaraf says, you become what you think about most, but you also attract what you think about most.
It's an inescapable feedback loop.
The universe, according to Byrne, is essentially a giant algorithm responding purely to the engagement time of your thoughts. If you dwell on debt, it feeds you more debt.
And the book applies this algorithmic loop directly to global wealth inequality. It tackles that famous statistic, why does roughly 1% of the population earn around 96% of the money?
And you have to look at how the text answers this. A traditional economist would point to systemic inequality, inherited wealth, tax policies.
But the text rejects all of those external factors. Right?
Completely. Bob Proctor asserts, quote, do you think that's an accident? It's designed that way. They understand something. They understand the secret.
The book argues that every wealthy person is actively using this law, either consciously or unconsciously.
They think thoughts of abundance, and this is the trick. They do not allow contradictory thoughts to take root.
Their overwhelming thought is wealth, so the cosmic algorithm delivers wealth.
What this text is really demanding here is a radical internalization of external circumstances. It places the entire burden of reality generation on the individual's ability to maintain a pure frequency.
Systemic barriers just don't exist in the universe of this book. There is only the purity of your internal broadcast.
Exactly.
Okay, but this brings up a huge logistical question. Say I accept the premise. My brain is emitting a wealth frequency. How does that invisible wave actually turn into a physical check in my mailbox?
How does an abstract thought materialize into a leather-seated car?
Right. The book tries to bridge this gap using a surprisingly modern piece of technology as a metaphor.
Yes, the source material leans heavily on the analogy of a television transmission tower.
It argues we all inherently understand how a TV station works. A massive tower broadcasts a specific frequency. That frequency hits the receiver in your TV and is miraculously transformed into a physical picture.
We accept that channel 4 has one frequency and channel 7 has another.
And Byrne claims that you, the individual human being, are a transmission tower, more powerful than any television tower ever constructed.
You are the most powerful transmission tower in the universe.
The frequency you transmit with your thoughts isn't just reaching your living room TV, it's reverberating throughout the entire cosmos.
But here's the real twist of the analogy. The pictures you receive back aren't showing up on a glass screen. They are the physical events of your actual life.
So your daily life is the television screen. If you don't like the pictures, you hate your job, your bank balance is negative. The text instructs you to just change the channel.
And you change the channel of your life by deliberately changing your thoughts, tuning your brain to a new frequency.
To illustrate how powerful this is, the text provides a specific example about the roller coaster of wealth.
Right. Individuals who acquire massive fortunes lose every single penny and then acquire massive wealth all over again.
I'm so fascinated by this because if I get rich, shouldn't my brain naturally broadcast a rich frequency? I have the money, I see it. Why would the universe take it away?
We have to unpack the psychological insight here. The text argues they gained the wealth because their dominant obsessive thoughts were focused purely on acquiring it.
They were locked onto the wealth channel.
Exactly. But the moment they actually had the money, a new, insidious thought crept in. They allowed the fear of losing the wealth to enter their minds.
Oh, wow. So their internal focus shifted entirely from the joy of having money to the terror of losing it.
And according to the absolute rules of the law of attraction, the universe responds to your predominant thought no matter what.
It doesn't care that you're rich. It cares that you are obsessing over loss.
Right. So when fearful thoughts became their dominant frequency, they accidentally changed the channel. They tipped the scales to loss, and the universe faithfully delivered the physical pictures of loss, bankruptcy.
But then how does the book explain them getting the fortune back?
Well, the book says that once they lost absolutely everything and hit rock bottom, the intense fear of loss completely disappeared.
Because you can't fear losing what you don't have anymore.
Exactly. Because the fear vanished, mental real estate freed up. Their original dominant thoughts of wealth and ambition took over again.
The scales tipped back, they changed the channel back to wealth, and the money inevitably returned.
It's a fascinating way to frame financial volatility.
It is, but it leads me to a massive, glaring question. I really have to push back on the source material here.
Go for it.
If this law is absolute, if it responds flawlessly, and if changing our life is as simple as clicking a mental remote control, why isn't everyone living their dream life right now?
Why is there so much suffering and poverty?
Exactly. If the formula is this simple, why are we collectively failing at it?
That is the most natural objection, and the text actually anticipates it. It introduces what it calls a literal worldwide epidemic.
The single biggest obstacle to human happiness. They call it the don't want epidemic.
Yes. The text states it with brutal simplicity. The only reason people do not have what they want is because they are thinking more about what they don't want than what they do want.
The don't want epidemic. The book claims this psychological epidemic is worse than any physical plague, and it's been ravaging our potential for centuries.
And if we look back at your social media algorithm analogy, it perfectly explains why this is so devastating. Bob Doyle points out that the law is completely impersonal.
Right, it doesn't judge, it doesn't possess empathy.
Just like the algorithm doesn't speak English, it speaks engagement. Doyle uses the example of being trapped in debt. If you look at a stack of bills and feel terrible,
You're feeling that knot of anxiety in your stomach.
that exact feeling is the signal you are blasting out. You are affirming, I feel bad because of debt. The universe receives the intense signal of debt.
And because, attracts, it simply gives you more debt. It doesn't say, oh, this poor person is suffering, let me take the debt away.
It just processes the data.
Yeah.
Highly focused on debt, supply more debt.
It's a totally neutral, unfeeling law of nature, like gravity. Gravity doesn't care if you're a saint rescuing puppies or a criminal. If you step off a roof, you're going down.
Gravity doesn't negotiate. And the law of attraction, according to this text, operates with that exact same ruthless mathematical perfection.
But to understand why the don't want epidemic is so hard to cure, we have to look at a linguistic blind spot. Lisa Nichols explains this crucial operational rule.
Yes. She explains that while the law is obedient, it fundamentally does not compute negation words.
The universe literally does not hear the words don't, not, or no.
Just pause and think about the staggering implications of that. The universe is a giant affirmative yes machine.
It strips away any grammatical modifiers or negative framing. The text gives a rapid-fire list of everyday examples to make this concrete, and we really need to go through them.
It highlights how fundamentally we would have to alter our internal monologue. How does the book break down normal conversation?
Okay, so if you're getting dressed for a nice dinner and you think, I don't want to spill something on this outfit, the universe deletes the don't.
Right. It translates it as, I want to spill something on this outfit and I want to spill more things.
Because the intense mental focus is on the act of spilling. If you sit in the salon chair and think, I don't want a bad haircut, the universe hears, I want bad haircuts.
I don't want to be delayed in traffic becomes, I want massive delays.
I don't want that coworker to be rude becomes, I want that coworker to be exceedingly rude to me. The list goes on.
I don't want to argue with my spouse tonight translates directly to, I want more arguing.
Byrne concludes this section with a definitive statement. The law of attraction is giving you what you are thinking about, period.
As an analyst, I have to emphasize the profound psychological load this places on the reader. This philosophy requires a total rewiring of human language and instinct.
Yeah, because human beings are biologically hardwired to focus on threats.
Exactly. Our amygdala is designed to scan the environment for what we don't want: predators, starvation, physical danger.
Negative visualization is a survival mechanism.
But this text demands you override millions of years of evolutionary biology. Instead of moving away from pain, you must artificially force your brain to only focus on moving toward desire.
That clash with evolution is so fascinating. I was actually thinking about a really tough scenario while reading this. Imagine you're driving on a busy highway at night, and suddenly a torrential rainstorm hits. Roads are slick, visibility is terrible, you're gripping the wheel, and your protective instinct is to think, I hope I don't crash.
Right. I need to avoid that swerving truck.
But according to the absolute rules of this text, thinking I hope I don't crash is sending out a massive magnetic frequency inviting a car accident.
Because the universe doesn't hear don't, it just processes the fear-fueled image of a crash.
Exactly. So to drive safely under these rules, you have to force your panicked brain to only process affirmative thoughts. I will arrive safely. My car is flawlessly adhered to the road.
You have to aggressively censor every protective instinct flashing in your brain.
Doing that for a 20-minute drive sounds incredibly mentally exhausting. Policing your thoughts at that granular level takes immense cognitive effort.
Exhausting is exactly the right word. It requires constant, unwavering hypervigilance. And that exhaustion brings us to a critical revelation in the text.
You can never, ever turn this machine off. There is no off switch.
Lisa Nichols states it without ambiguity. It's an ongoing process. You don't press pause. You don't press stop. It is forever in action.
There is no vacation from the law of attraction. You can't clock out at 5 p.m. Teacher Michael Bernard Beckwith explains that the act of creation is always happening.
Every passing thought, every chronic way of thinking is active creation.
He makes a really fascinating point about time and memory. He says it doesn't matter if you're thinking about the past, present, or future. The law is working.
So if you're ruminating over an argument you had 10 years ago,
you are actively creating future injustice and conflict for yourself right now. The life you're living right now is merely a physical reflection of your past thoughts.
The text highlights how inescapable this is by listing mundane moments. We're thinking while reading the newspaper, while staring at the TV.
While stuck in traffic, while brushing our teeth, the book argues that during all these seemingly insignificant moments, the massive cosmic gears are grinding away.
Diligently creating your future based on whatever idle thought crossed your mind.
But surely it stops when we sleep, right? We lose consciousness.
You would think so, but the book says no. It highlights a very specific and terrifying directive about sleep.
Right. It acknowledges we stop consciously thinking, but claims the forces of attraction lock onto your last thoughts as you fall asleep.
The sleep directive. It's a fascinating quirk of the philosophy. The text explicitly advises, make your last thoughts before going to sleep good thoughts.
Because whatever anxiety or joy you're mulling over is left marinating in the universe's creation engine for 8 straight hours.
Think of your mind as a 247 manufacturing plant. The assembly line never stops.
Even when the manager of the factory, your conscious mind, goes to sleep, the machines keep stamping out products based on whatever blueprint was left on the desk at 11:59 p.m.
If you fall asleep worrying about how to pay your mortgage, the factory spends the night manufacturing more mortgage anxiety, more debt, more financial hurdles.
It's a remarkable, heavy metaphor, and it requires us to connect this back to you, the listener. Consider the immense weight of what this text is proposing.
If your thoughts are literally seeds, And the ultimate harvest of your life depends 100% on the seeds you plant.
How differently will you approach your quiet moments of reflection today? How will you handle that idle Tuesday afternoon commute?
Are you deliberately planting seeds of abundance? Or are you accidentally planting weeds of debt and frustration just because someone cut you off in traffic?
It demands a level of cognitive accountability that is frankly staggering.
It really is. And we have covered an immense amount of ground today, unpacking the internal architecture of this belief system.
Let's briefly recap the journey we've been on through these foundational texts. We started by looking at the author's narrative anchor.
The discovery of the secret out of profound despair, and her sweeping claims that this hidden knowledge drove history's greatest minds.
We dug into the core mechanism, the audacious idea that thoughts are measurable physical frequencies and that like attracts like.
Exploring the concept that we are essentially walking human magnets, much like a social media algorithm feeding us our own engagement.
We examined the analogy of the human mind as a transmission tower, broadcasting signals that the universe reflects back as the physical pictures of our lives.
Allowing us to theoretically change the channel of our reality just by shifting our focus.
We dissected the immense danger of the don't want epidemic and that linguistic loophole where the universe is an unfeeling yes machine.
Forcing a radical, exhausting reframing of how we speak and think to bypass our evolutionary survival instincts.
And finally, we explored the daunting reality of a 247 creation cycle. The machine never pauses, not even in sleep.
Making every single passing thought a literal blueprint for our future reality.
Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, deeply provocative thought to mull over.
We've maintained our impartiality today, looking strictly at the mechanics of the text. But if we follow the logic to its absolute conclusion,
it leads us to a very intense, highly controversial philosophical place. Think about it. If this law of nature is absolute, if it never pauses, never judges,
and if we are the sole creators of our reality through our thought frequencies,
then there is zero room in the universe for coincidence. There is no room for random luck. And most heavily of all, there is absolutely no room for victimhood.
That is the inevitable conclusion. If the law is absolute, every single joy, every financial success is entirely of your own making. You take the credit.
But conversely, every single tragedy, every random accident, every chronic illness, every systemic failure you experience
would theoretically also be 100% of your own making, drawn directly to you by a negative broadcast frequency you unconsciously emitted.
It's a philosophy of ultimate, almost terrifying empowerment. It hands you the keys to the entire kingdom, telling you that you're a god shaping the cosmos.
But it simultaneously hands you the bill for every single broken window in your life.
What does it actually mean for society, for human empathy, for how we support the sick or the impoverished, if we truly accept absolute responsibility for every single thing that happens to us?
It's a paradigm that completely shatters our normal, comfortable understanding of cause and effect, of community and compassion.
It really does. It brings us right back to the beginning of our conversation. You experience a hardship, a metaphorical broken bone. Traditional logic says the world broke you.
But this text asks you to look past the break. Look deep into your own mind and ask yourself,
what was the invisible, fearful frequency I was broadcasting that summoned the fall? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the texts, keep exploring the architecture of belief, and above all, be incredibly mindful of your broadcast today.